Ladies and gentle gamers, welcome back to Be Determined. In today's video, I'm going to show you how to progress through the Diana event, the best upgrades to get at what times, and how to take on all of the mobs at each tier. So if you guys end up enjoying, make sure to drop a like on this one, smash the sub button. I'm trying to get to 30,000 subs before the end of this year so I can get to red name, and every little bit helps. So thank you so much, and let's jump into it. So let's start off with the ultra basics. Mayor Diana has to be elected with the Mythological ritual perk for the event to be active. If you've never done the event before and you're just starting out, you'll need to buy an ancestral spade and a Griffin pet. As you level up your Griffin pet's rarity, you'll unlock more mobs that are tougher to fight, as well as upgrade the mobs you've been able to fight to be even tougher. And each of those mobs will have their own unique drops that are good for different individual things, generally related to pets. Once you have a Griffin pet equipped and some version of a spade, you can right click while in the hub and it'll point you over to a specific area. So I recommend having a mod for this event to help you guess where the burrow is going to be. Personally, I use Badlion Client, but also I know a lot of people use SBO, Sky Handy, and Skytills, some version of each of those, to help find the burrows, as well as be able to show your location to people in your party, which at the lower tiers here isn't very important. But once you get up to legendary and above tiers, you're going to want to be in a party to fight the mobs because they're that difficult to take down. But you can tell, depending on the particles around the burrow, what type of burrow it is. This one has the blue sharpness particles around it, so whenever I click this, we know it is a starter burrow, which means it is going to be a 1 out of ever how many. When you're first starting out, you'll only be able to have burrow chains up to 4. As you get upgrades later on, it'll go all the way up to 10. But when you dig the first burrow, it'll just have this arrow pointing to the next section. You can right click with your spade and it will still help you point towards the next one. There are also mods out there, by the way, that will let you teleport based on your warp. So this guess is closer to /warp hub, so I have a keybind on my keyboard. It's caps lock for me, but you can change it to anything. I press caps lock and it'll teleport me over to the hub and let me go around to easier places, which again, if you don't have MVP plus, it will be a lot more limited, but with MVP plus you can teleport to hub, crypts, castle, wherever. But this burrow is a treasure burrow. You can tell because of the orange particles, the lava particles there. So if we click it, it's going to have loot. We got a Griffin feather this time, which is going to be useful for a lot of upgrades. After you click it a second time, it will point the arrow to the next section. So this one's over by the castle. So I'm just going to warp over here, and then we can right click, see exactly where it is down here. This burrow has the white particles around it. I believe that's the crit particles, or maybe that's the sharpness particles and the other ones are the crit particles. I don't even know. I don't play vanilla. But when I click this, it's going to spawn a mob. So let's go ahead and click it. We got the Siamese Lynx this time, which you can spawn at tier 1. So with a common Griffin, you're only going to be able to spawn 2 of the 12 mythological mobs. The first of which is the Siamese Lynx, those cats that we just spawned. And the second is the Minos Hunter. So the Siamese Lynx are 2 pairs of cats, or 1 pair of cats, I guess. And at this tier, they have a lot of health, but at the first tier, they've only got 2,500. So as you upgrade your pet, you will notice that they do have different health amounts. This goes for every single mob that you'll unlock. They just increase in health and damage as you level up your pet. But at tier 1, it's pretty easy, only 2,500 HP. And they have a chance to drop these crochet tiger plushies, which I don't know why that guy was selling that for 600 mil. They're only worth about 250k. This guy's selling it for 200k, but we can go ahead and just steal that off the auction house, because these actually just sell to NPC now for 250k. So at the very least, you can just sell it to NPC for some extra money. But it is also a pet item, so you can put on a pet to get 35 bonus attack speed. So these are the cats. So you can see that one of them has particles above his head. That means I can hit that one. I can't hit the other one. So if I try and hit this white one, it doesn't work. But if I hit the black one, he gets killed from that. You may deal enough damage to one-shot them, you may not, but if you do enough damage to one-shot them, you just have to kill the one with particles first. If they do survive 2 hits, then you will be able to hit the first one and then the second one, and then go back to the first one and then back to the second one until eventually they do die, depending on how much damage you do. This is a Minos Hunter. It's basically just a glorified zombie. He just runs at you and hits you. It's nothing too crazy. He does have a little bit of speed on him, but that's about all he's got going for him. Generally, you'll be able to just one-tap him. They are not tough at all. Now, the burrows do have different chances, so whenever you do get a burrow, after the start burrow, it is a 75% chance to be a mob burrow like this that spawns any mob, or those treasure burrows with the orange particles that we saw earlier, the lava particles, those have a 25% chance to spawn, and they can drop you those Griffin feathers or coins, or once you get some upgrades, Mythos Fragment. And the way to get those upgrades is actually with the Hilt of Revelations, which drops rarely from those Minos hunters. So you can use this Hilt of Revelations to get, first off, the Archaic Spade. I highly recommend going for this. It is a little bit expensive. You do need quite a few Griffin feathers, some enchanted gold blocks, ancient claws, but it will upgrade your Ancestral Spade to the Archaic Spade, allowing you to drop those Mythos Fragments. And each of those Mythos Fragments at the moment are going for over 5 million coins. Earlier today, they were going for 8 million, so it is dropping in price at the moment. I am recording this a few days after the update, so the price is a little bit iffy, but they should always be worth more than 1 million coins at the very least. So it's a good way to make some money in the early game. You'll also be able to make an upgrade of that Archaic Spade eventually. The Daphic Spade, it does require some of those Mythos Fragments and a few other upgrades that are somewhat expensive. But another upgrade you can make at this point is the Sword of Revelations. It does a bunch of damage to mythological mobs and gives you some magic find against them, so that you can drop more of the rarer drops a bit more commonly. A very cheap option for starting out the event. You can make this pretty quickly into it. If you're on Iron Man, you may have a bit of a struggle dropping the hilt, but if you're on a regular profile, you can usually buy one on the auction house for actually less than it sells to NPC for. We just go ahead and steal that one. Oh, somebody else stole it, but if you actually find it going for less than 150k, then that's actually profit, because they sell to NPC for 150,000 coins. So it's a pretty nice way to make money if you do get some extra ones left over. And although the best weapons in this event are going to be melee, at these early stages, you can get away with using magic damage. If you have a Dreadlord sword or something, it's okay to use that. But just keep in mind, every single one of these mobs is going to have 50% magic resistant. Every single one of them. So once you get to the higher tiers where they've got millions and millions of HP, it's going to be tough to take them down with magic, so you're going to want to swap to melee at some point. But again, if you're just getting into the event and you've already got a pretty good mage setup, you're one-tapping everything, feel free to use that. But if you are one-tapping everything, it's probably a good idea to go ahead and upgrade your Griffin pet. To upgrade your pet, you're going to need Griffin upgrade stones, which this upgrade stones requires a stack of enchanted gold ingots, 8 Griffin feathers, and 32 ancient claws, as well as the base Griffin upgrade stone, which requires also 8 more Griffin feathers, some more gold ingots, and enchanted cobblestone. You can go ahead and craft this uncommon Griffin upgrade stone, and you bring it to Cat to upgrade your Griffin pet from common to uncommon. But what I do recommend being able to do before you do that is deal 15,000 damage. Generally, a good rule of thumb before you upgrade your Griffin pet is to be able to kill the mob of the next tier in one hit. So at common, you only need to deal 4,000 damage to kill the Minos Hunter. At uncommon, you'll need to do 15,000 to one-shot these. And that's because these are generally going to be the weakest mob that you'll find at each tier. So if you're able to one-tap those, you should be able to kill the other mobs in that tier pretty quickly. And it's generally only going to be worth doing this event to make money if you can kill the mobs quickly. So I highly recommend being able to deal enough damage to one-tap the hunter of the next tier before you upgrade to that tier. So in this case, before you upgrade to uncommon, make sure you're dealing about 15,000 damage. One set that you can get to help with that is the Challenger armor set. It is going to require a bit of Griffin feathers, some enchanted gold, and ancient claws, but if you're just starting out the game and you don't really have another good setup to use, this set does get double its stats while it is Diana's event in the hub, and it reduces the damage you take from the mobs. So if you are having a problem surviving, then this will help quite a bit with that. It does also go in Museum, and again, its stats are doubled. So if you have a good reforge on it, it's going to get quite a bit more health, more defense, and more strength during the event. If you're just running indoor armor at the moment, then this is probably a good upgrade to go for. And again, I do highly recommend going for this Archaic Spade so you can drop those Mythos fragments and be making more money. It will help out a ton. And also you'll need a lot of those Mythos fragments for later upgrades. So it's a pretty cheap upgrade to go for, all things considered. So I would highly recommend going for it. Another thing you can go for is the Beastmaster Crest, which is pretty cheap to start off. You just need a milk bucket, 4 Griffin feathers, 40 ancient claws to make it. You can generally just upgrade this at any time. It's just a talisman line that gains stats based on how many mythological mobs and Minos followers you've slain. I think it goes all the way up to 10,000. So if you get up to 10,000 kills on this, you get a intelligence boost, and I believe the pet XP boost is based on the amount of kills you have. So it can help you level up pets a bit faster. So this is the uncommon one. To upgrade to the rare one, you're going to need these materials. To upgrade to the epic version, you'll need these. And finally, the legendary version, you'll need these. So it can be a pricey upgrade, but there's not really any time that you have to get this upgrade by. This one you can just get as you get the materials. If you get a bunch of extra Griffin feathers, might want to throw them at this. Once you get to uncommon Griffin, you can spawn these guys, the stranded nymphs. They are limited on their first attack's damage. So you can see I'm going to hit him once. I did 1.25 million, which is half of his health. And then he spawned a bunch of water at his feet. So then you can hit him the second time and it doesn't have a limit. I did 4 million damage there. So that was quite a bit on that second hit. But those guys are pretty easy. They just spawn that water at the second hit. So try to have Depth Strider on your boots. That can help a bit if you get stuck in the water. But other than that, they're pretty easy. They do drop the Washed Up Souvenir, which is a pretty good item for Sea Creature chance. It gives +5 Sea Creature chance as a pet item, which is really useful for pretty much any fishing pet. So you got a flying fish or an ammonite pet, this is a good item to use for those. This is the Cretan Bull, which does a big dash at you and he hits really hard. So you're gonna have to be careful when he spawns in. After he does hit you, he does stand still for a second. So he will just sit there for a moment and then you can kill him. And as you can see, he does have a chance to drop the Cretan Urn, which grants some extra pet luck. It's not a very great item. I think the upgraded version you can actually put on a black cat pet if you are crafting pets to get a higher chance to craft stuff, but it actually has like 0 use right now, to be honest, because pet luck used to be used for crafting pets. It's not really the case anymore. Magic Find is generally easier to get your hands on and just as good as pet luck to actually drop pets, so not a very useful item anymore, unfortunately. You can also get Cretan Bull shards from either killing them with salts and having the salt proc a shard, or by catching them in a pocket black hole, and they can give you up to 40 total defense against mythological mobs, so pretty helpful if you are struggling with survivability. Now there's a few upgrades that you can do now that you've upgraded to the uncommon and hopefully dropped a few mythos fragments. A Dayfix Spade would definitely be a good one. This one does require 16 mythos fragments, so if you dropped that many, congratulations, but if you haven't, no worries. This upgrade can wait for later. It's not required to have before you upgrade to rare. It's just a good thing to have at some point. I recommend getting it before legendary tier at the very least, but you don't have to get it right now. Another good upgrade to keep in mind to use your mythos fragments on is the mythos armor. If you don't have access to a like burning or hot tier crimson set, then this is going to be better than most of the other sets that you'll have access to. It is just the upgraded version of the challenger set. It gives just more stats and also some extra magic find against mythological mobs, so you won't have to do magic find swapping. We'll talk about that at a later date, but it does also give that reduced damage taken from mythological mobs, so it's just a nice set. Does pretty decent damage if you don't have access to a high damage set like Crimson. But again, not required for right now, just a good idea to upgrade at some point. Another good thing to get your hands on if you're not on an Iron Man is a Crown of Greed. They're somewhat cheap. I mean, there's still 4 million coins at the moment. As of me recording this, they could go up in price, but with them being as cheap as they are right now, it's definitely a good upgrade to go for. It gives you double coins from Griffin burrows, extra magic find on mythological mobs. You do, however, take more damage from them, but I think these rewards are worth that extra damage increase, as long as it's not causing you to get one-tapped by stuff. If you are getting one-tapped while wearing this helmet, and you weren't getting one-tapped without it, then probably don't use it, but in any other scenario, it's definitely worth it. Now, as I said earlier, I recommend being able to one-tap the mobs of the next tier before you upgrade to the next rarity Griffin. So before upgrading to rare Griffin, I recommend being able to do 100,000 damage. That might sound like a lot if you're starting off, and it is a decent chunk of damage, but if you upgrade without being able to do that damage, you're really going to struggle with these mobs. Some of the mobs at this tier have a ton of health and they do enough damage to one-tap most people, so that's why I'm recommending you be able to deal that much damage. Also, you kind of want to be able to kill the mobs fast no matter what tier you're doing, so that you have more chances to drop those mythos fragments from the treasure burrows, so that you're getting more burrows. By killing quickly, you get access to more burrows, and also more chances for the rare loot drops and things like that. Even if you are getting slightly slower burrows from upgrading at the start, it's still a good idea to upgrade if you're doing enough damage to two-tap most of the mobs, because bestiary is very important with this event now. The Daedalus Blade is the upgraded version of that Sword of Revelations that we talked about earlier. and its damage requires very heavily on mythological bestiary tiers. So if you have a bunch of bestiary, you're going to do a bunch of damage plus get a bunch of magic finds, so you get more of the money making drop. So bestiary is very important with this, so unlocking new mobs from higher tiers of Griffin and being able to kill a bunch of them is going to help you a lot in the future. This is one of the new mobs that you'll spawn at this tier, the Harpy. As you can see, it jumps up every time it touches the ground and it will just rain down arrows on you. If you do manage to take him down, that's not too bad. Like, they're not too bad if you have a god potion, you can just jump up and click him. But it can be a problem if you were to spawn him like down here right underneath a tree, because he just jumps up, and he'll just keep moving around constantly. It gets really difficult to hit. So might be a good idea to have a mage weapon to take him down in case that happens. But in general, they're not too bad. They do have a chance to drop antique remedies, which increases your pet's strength by 80%. These are very good for golden dragons and yeti pets, so definitely a good idea to have on those. Or you can get the upgraded versions. There are upgraded versions of every single one of the pet items in these loot tables, and they all require these Hephaestus anvils, which require 32 mythos fragments. So at the moment, they're extremely expensive. Each anvil is about 200 million coins worth of mythos fragments, plus all the other drops added on to it. So it's another 40 mil from these Griffin feathers. So very expensive item, but it upgrades the antique remedies to being able to give from 80% strength to 100% strength. It upgrades the plushies from 35 attack speed to 50, the urns from 5 pet luck to 10, the souvenirs from 5 sea creature chance to 10, the Minos relics, which we'll talk about here in a little bit, from 33% stats to 50%, and the Shelmet, which we will talk about also in a moment, from 10 true defense up to 20. This is a Gaia construct. These guys will spawn this lightning down next to you just like that. If you stand in it, you're pretty much dead. I'm not gonna stand in it right now because I'm pretty sure I'd get one tapped. But you will notice whenever you click him, the first few times you click him, he doesn't take damage, so you have to click him a few times for him to actually start taking damage. Once you get him down past half health, he starts spawning this lightning way faster, so you got to be more careful then. But I'm just gonna go ahead and kill him just like that, and he's the one who can drop those dwarf turtle shellmen, which give knockback resistance. If you don't have the shellwise attribute maxed, I highly recommend having that maxed, by the way, but if you don't, it will give you knockback resistance and also some true defense, so it is somewhat useful for Blaze Slayer if you're just getting into it and you are struggling with survivability. But for every other case, it's not really that useful. And that Harpy, by the way, does have an attribute that you can catch or that you can get from the salt. So either black hole or salt to get the shard. And it's just actually for tree gifts. So you can get extra monsters from tree gifts if you get this shard maxed. So not really helpful for the event, but it is a shard that you can get. And now before upgrading your Griffin pet to epic, I do recommend being able to one-tap these hunters, which have 350,000 HP. The mobs at this point start getting quite a bit tankier. So from here on out, you're going to have some pretty big jumps in damage that you're going to want to be making before you upgrade your pet. Again, all of the good drops start at legendary as far as the good mob drops, but you can still get those mythos fragments at any tier of Griffin. So that's why those spade upgrades are so important, because you can do them at any point. But just like all the other tiers, at Epic, you'll be able to spawn 2 brand new mobs. The first of which is this Minos champion. So he's just basically a really tanky guy, and the longer you leave him alive, the more damage he does. You can see that damage percentage increasing over his head by the second, and he just hits me harder and harder every time. So you're going to want to make sure you take him down quick. He has a lot of health as well. He's one of the tankier mobs in this event, so don't be discouraged if it takes you a little bit to chunk him down. But he is the one that drops that Minos relic, which increases your pet stats by 33%. And the Hephaestus version of this is actually supposed to be better than Quick Claw for Skatha pets, so it's actually a good mining pet thing, but it's also one of the better upgrades that you can get on your golden dragons. I have the lower version with 33%, but the Hephaestus version gives that 50%, which does apply for the magic find and the strength and the bonus attack speed up here. So it is a very big deal for getting all those stats up. Specifically magic find, that's the main one everybody looks at for slayers and everything else, but the other upgrades are nice as well. And this is a Minotaur. He throws axes at you, and the more the axes hit you, the more that bleed build up above his head proc. So the first axes don't do that much damage, but as he hits me with more axes, they start chunking for more and more damage. So you're going to want to make sure you can take him down relatively quickly. But these guys can drop dataless sticks, which are used for a few different upgrades. The first of which is the dataless notes, which is a reforge that you can put on your Dayfix spade or any other spade to get extra burrow chains. It's not that great at this tier, but you definitely want to make sure you get one before you upgrade to Mythic Griffin. It is a 4 Mythos fragment requirement, so compared to some of these other items that you're gonna have to get, it's not that bad. And considering the Epic Griffin upgrade stone requires the same amount of fragments, we're already spending that amount of fragments on a few things at this point, so it's not a bad idea to throw it for that. But another thing that you can use it on is crafting the dataless blade, which this is the unfragged version. You'll also be able to frag it to get even more damage and magic find out of it, but the unfragged version does require 2 dataless sticks and a bunch of enchanted gold blocks, 48 to be exact, as well as of course that Sword of Revelations, which we talked about earlier. But it gains 4 damage per taming level and copies the base combat stats of your active pet. It also grants extra damage and magic find on mythological mobs based on your bestiary tiers. So again, this is the lower version, the unfragged version, and its damage didn't used to be so heavily based on bestiary. So if you are coming to this video after the update happened and you're doing less damage with your dataless blade, it's probably because your bestiary levels aren't that high. So getting the bestiary levels up will help you deal more damage with this day blade. Or if you wanted to, you could go ahead and put some golden fragments on it. Golden fragments are very expensive right now because Diaz hasn't been elected in a hot minute with her stock exchange perk, so not able to get a ton of these added back into the ecosystem with everyone buying them up to make the upgraded dataless blade. But it is a worthy upgrade. It does give a bunch of extra damage and damage percentage, as well as more magic find. So compared to the base dataless blade, where with my bestiary I'd be getting 186 extra damage and 37.2 magic find, the fragged version gives 279 extra damage and 55 magic find. So it's pretty significant of an upgrade, definitely worth it. Another item that might be worth making at this point is the Crown of Avarice. This is the best helmet to use for this event. It does make mythological mobs do more damage, but you gain 5 times the coins from Griffin burrows and mythological mobs. They will be consumed by the helmet to give you extra damage and magic find based on the amount of coins that you have. But once you get a pretty high coin amount, you can get some pretty insane magic find and damage increases. It is, however, extremely expensive. Currently, this one has 2 million coins on it, but it's going for 850 million. And that, again, is because Diaz hasn't been elected in a while, so avaricious chalices are through the roof. So hopefully the price of this will drop back down relatively soon, but if it doesn't, it's a good idea to get a decent set of crimson. I'd say at the very least burning tier, and you can use like a warden helmet or a primordial helmet in the place of the Crown of Avarice if you don't want to buy that. But that's what I recommend getting before you upgrade your Griffin to legendary, because you're going to want to be doing 1,000,000 damage. That's right, the Minos hunters at this level have 1,000,000 HP, and all of the mobs in this tier get super chunky. You can start spawning Sphinxes and Inquisitors. The Inquisitors will have 50 million HP, and the Sphinxes normally will have 40, but they can have up to 60 million health. So you're going to want to be doing a good chunk of damage to be able to handle those. But one thing that can definitely help is having a party. I highly recommend, once you get to Legendary Griffin, make sure to play with a party. This way, not only will you have help killing your mobs, you'll also be able to loot share off of other people's mobs. So I can't tell you how many Chimera books I've dropped that weren't even off of my own Inquisitors, because I was able to loot share them off of other people's Inquisitors. So highly recommend playing with a party. And one thing you'll need to do if you're playing with a party is have a magic find set, which if you have that Mythos set from earlier, you can use that. But the Sorrow set is also good if you're running the Crimson gear to be able to handle these mobs, because it also gives a good chunk of magic find. So either the Mythos set or our Sorrow set to be able to get good magic find on these. But generally what you're going to want to do is each party will have a designated killer. So one person out of the 6 people in the party, you're going to have up to 6 people per party. One of those people will be the killer. And so the killer is 100% gonna have to have the looting 5 enchant on their Daedalus Blade or whatever weapon they're using to kill, because the looting enchant only is procced by whoever kills. So you want to make sure whoever's killing has looting 5. Also, generally when you're killing, you're going to have to kill with a Griffin pet equipped. There are a few tricks that you can do with auto pet rules to actually be able to get the kill while using the Griffin pet, but the Magic Find will proc whenever using your Magic Find pet, which usually at this point you'll have a G-Drag or maybe just a black cat, but either way, something to get a bit more Magic Find. And the way that you do this is actually with a Hunt Axe and some Ferocity. So it's a good idea to have some Ferocious mana levels on your Sorrow gear or whatever gear you're using to swap to, so you can get a decent chunk of Ferocity. Basically, the way this works, you're going to want some auto pet rules here. The first auto pet rule is when you dig up a Griffin burrow, equip the Griffin pet. And the second is whenever you kill a mythological mob, it equips your G-Drag or whatever pet you're using for Magic Find. And for some wacky reason, whenever you kill a mob with a Ferocity proc, it will equip your pet before it dies and give you the Magic Find. If you just kill it without Ferocity, then it just dies and you don't get the pet swap in time. The pet will swap, but it's after the mob's already dead. You don't get the Magic Find. So what you have to do is you get the mob low with the Hunt Axe, get him down to 1 HP, and then you just hit him with the Hunt Axe and swap to your Daedalus Blade. So I'm going to hit and swap, and I just keep doing this until I get a Frosty proc, which is going to take a while right now because I don't have anybody mana draining for me. But there we go, just like that. I got the Ferocity proc and he died from the Hunt Axe hit while I was holding the Daedalus Blade. And for some reason that bugs things out and lets you get the Magic Find from your G-Drag instead of the Magic Find from the Griffin pet. So it's just a small Magic Find boost, but it's just something you can do if you are the killer to make sure that you still get your extra Magic Find from your pet, to make sure you don't lose out on any of those super rare Chimera books. Another thing you're going to want is, again, make sure you're using mods. I use Badlion Client. If you're not using Badlion, a lot of people use SBO, Sky Handy, and Skytills. And basically what you can do is you have a button. We'll go to chat A this time. I press the button on my keyboard. I have it set to 7. If I press 7, then it posts these coordinates in the chat. And I also have a mod that makes a waypoint whenever coordinates are posted in the chat. So if somebody else posts coordinates in the chat, it would show up as a waypoint for me, and I'd be able to see exactly where the coordinates are from without having to go into F3 and be like, okay, where are they actually at? So you want a mod where you can press a button and paste your coordinates, and also a mod that turns those coordinates into waypoints. So you can just teleport over to wherever somebody has spawned their Inquisitor or their Sphinx and be able to help them kill it and get that loot share. But the two mobs that you're going to want to loot share in this event, at least at Legendary tier, are the Inquisitors and the Sphinxes. So the Sphinxes will ask you a question when you dig them up, and you'll have to answer it. If you answer correctly, they'll only have 40 million health, but if you answer incorrectly, they get 50% of a health boost and some extra damage boost as well. So they will get up to 60 million health and that extra enraged damage boost. So thankfully I answered this question correctly in this clip, but if you answer incorrectly, it can become a little bit of a problem if your party is not dealing that much damage. And these guys can drop the brain food, which is about 25 million coins at the time that I'm recording this, and these give you tracking, which is a very important stat. Tracking makes you more likely to spawn elusive mobs, which in this case is Inquisitors and Sphinxes, and once we get up to Mythic rarity, it'll be Manticores and King Minos as well. But it just makes you more likely to spawn those rare mobs with the rare drops that are worth a lot of money. So you want to get as much tracking as you can. At the moment, there's a few ways you can do this. The first is by going to your island, checking your beacon. You can actually change your profile stat here to tracking. So you don't want the Magic Find boost this time. You want tracking while this is going on. So make sure to have that tracking. You can get up to 6 from this. I only have the regular power crystal fuel going on right now. If I had scorched power crystals in this, then I could get up to 6 tracking from that, but for now we're just getting 5. You can also get tracking from the Diana's bookshelf if you've done this. Basically you have to get 6 Chimera book drops, and once you get that, you can claim the bookshelf and get a permanent 1 Magic Find, 1 tracking, and 1 taming wisdom. Or you can just buy one that's full on the auction house. If you're on Iron Man, you can access this in the Shin's special auction section. I think you need the Shin's regalia to be able to buy these from the yearly rotation down there. There'll be 75 million coins if they're active during the year that you see this, but it is like a 12 item rotation or something, so they only pop up every month and a half or something like that. You can also get some tracking from the mayor. So currently it is Diana Mayor. She does have 4 perks, which means her Huntress Intuition perk is active. So she gives +10 tracking from that at base. So you're going to be spawning more rare mobs just because of that. You can also get 5 extra tracking from being Void Gloom Seraph level 9. So if you're E-Man Slayer level 9, you get 5 extra tracking. Also, again, that brain food, if you eat 5 of those brain foods from the Sphinx drop, then you can get up to 5 more tracking from that. There's also another half of a tracking you can get from the Future Calories Talisman. If you have that accessory, it's pretty expensive. Also, the Mythic Griffin pet has a perk that grants +1 tracking on Griffin burrows for each burrow excavated in your current chain. So basically, since I have the maxed out spade, I can get up to a 10 burrow chain. So every single burrow that I dig up in that chain, I get 1 extra tracking all the way up to 10. And then once the burrow set is done, it resets and goes back down. And the only other way in the game right now to get tracking is from the Golden Fleece, which we'll talk about in a little bit. This is a super expensive item that just got added to the Diana event this year, because it does require a drop from the Mythic Griffin, but it grants +15 tracking on Griffin burrows, so it is a very good cloak. However, it is currently almost 1 billion coins, so a little bit on the pricey side. But that tracking will help you be more likely to spawn those Inquisitors, which are basically a buffed up Minos champion. They do decrease your stats whenever you are close to them, so that part's a little bit awkward. You get slower speed and less intelligence and everything like that. So you're going to take more damage, you're going to deal less damage. It's a little bit icky to deal with, but again, if you're hunting with a party, it shouldn't be that much of an issue. They do have that chance to drop Chimera books though, which is the best enchant in the game. It copies 20% of your active pet stats onto whatever weapon you have it applied to. So it is the best ultimate enchant for melee weapons in the game. So most people are now putting it on their data displays. Of course, that's been a thing. It's also good for Ragnarok axes if you're getting into some of the higher tier stuff like T5 Kudra, M7. It's good for those. Also, Slayer weapons. Gives you extra magic find, so very good for that as well. And that legendary Griffin upgrade stone did require 16 Mythos fragments. That's pretty cheap stuff compared to the Mythic Griffin upgrade stone. This one requires 48 Mythos fragments plus a ton of other materials: 2 braided Griffin feathers, 3 stacks of enchanted gold blocks, and 2 stacks of enchanted ancient claws. Very, very pricey upgrade to get, but it does let you spawn 2 brand new mobs, which I don't think I have a full screen clip of, so you're probably seeing a short on the screen right now. But the Manticore basically will do a big charge attack. Every now and then he gets these green particles over his head. You got to watch out for that. Make sure you back up. He will charge and shoot a bunch of arrows at you. And if one of those arrows hits you, you get poisoned and have 100% anti-healing. So 0 heals. If you try and use your hype to heal, it's not going to work. You'll get the absorption hearts, but once those run out, it's done. So with these guys, you definitely want to make sure you get a little bit of damage in at the start and then back up. Let the rest of your party take them down. And these guys can drop the Fateful Stinger to upgrade your Venomous level to 7. They also drop the Manticore, which is used to make these Manticore claws. Copies 10% of your active pet's combat stats, plus has all these base stats. It does go in museum. That's the main reason to go for it right now, to be honest. It's pretty decent, I would say, for probably Slayers and stuff, but whenever you are using just a Griffin pet, not like an E-Drag or something, it's not really that good. And the final mob that you have to fight is King Minos. This guy is a tough cookie. He has a 100 hits phase that you'll have to get through. So he just has 100 hits you have to do at the start. You can use a Terminator with explosive arrows if you want to take him down a bit. But if you hit him too many times with that, he will get enraged a lot faster and start dealing a lot more damage after he gets finished with the hits phase. So generally, you're going to want to make sure that you don't start hitting him with the Terminator after he is below the hits phase. So don't hit him too many times with those explosive arrows. But make sure you deal some damage, even if it is your own King Minos that you just spawned. Make sure you deal some damage after the hits phase. Otherwise, you won't get bestiary. Or if you're not the person who spawned it, you won't get loot share. So make sure to get in there, deal some damage after the hits phase is over. So King Minos will drop the Crown of Greed, which we talked about a bit earlier, and the Shimmering Wool, which is that drop that is needed in order to make the Golden Fleece, which gives extra magic find on mythological mobs and that extra tracking on Griffin burrows. So again, most expensive item from Diana's event, the Shimmering Wool, used to make this upgrade. But that should be all of the mobs that are in the Diana event. There's still a few tips and tricks we can go over though. First off, I'd like to explain what my inventory has going on here. So the reason I'm not using my wardrobe to swap to my sorrow gear is because I am using that Crown of Avarice, which by itself gives more magic find than the entire sorrow set. So I don't want to swap off of this. So what I do is I do /equipment. I have a keybind for it, or not a keybind, but a inventory button here. So I can press this button in my inventory. It'll go to /equipment. And then I can swap to my sorrow set right here and just instantly have that on. So that's really good for my magic find swap since I am using Infernal Crimson. Again, you can use the Mythos armor, but it is going to be a lot worse for damage compared to this set. So I prefer to run the Crimson just for the extra damage so that I'm getting more kills per hour, spawning more things per hour, etc. Then of course we have the aspect of the void that I use to teleport around. We do have a sapphire power scroll on here, so that helps with the extra mana and stuff. Got all that sort of upgrades that we can get, so very helpful to teleport around with. I also have the hunt axe for if I'm the killer, but generally I'm not actually using that in my hotbar. I'm usually having this Gloomlock Grimoire here so that if I do manage to run out of mana, then I can left click to convert 15 soul flow to 600 overflow mana. So you can see I have 46 overflow mana right now. If I just spam my hype down, then eventually I just run out of mana. And I have that 24 overflow mana now. So if I left click with the Grimoire, and let's say I'm teleporting around a bunch, but in this case, we're just going to use hype. If I run out of mana, it starts going into that overflow mana, so I can just teleport around a little bit easier. So if I am just teleporting around and I manage to run out of mana, then I can just left click and instantly have a ton more teleports to be able to use right off the bat. So that helps out a ton with just not running out of mana. Next off, we of course have the Daedalus Blade, which is my damage. We have my Spade, which I use, of course, to dig up the burrows. We also have this extremely real shuriken. So these are very good to use on those elusive mobs. It gives 5% extra magic find when the tagged enemy is killed. So everybody gets the magic find for this in the party. I know there's been a lot of confusion around this, whether only the person who hits with the shuriken gets the magic find, whether the person who does the last hit gets the magic find. Everybody who loot shared gets this extra magic find. So you're going to want to make sure generally if you're the spawner, you should be the person that is throwing this to make sure you hit the mob. And there is a strategy you can do now with the Sphinx with this fire freeze staff. So if you have a fire freeze staff, basically what this will do is it just freezes all the mobs in the area. So especially if it's a Sphinx, you can do it if it's an ink as well. I believe the Manticores and King Minos are a little bit immune to it at the very least, but it does make it easier to hit with the shuriken if you fire freeze them first and then hit them with that. Also, it makes it easier to do the hunt axe strat if you're the killer to hit with the ferocity and stuff. But if it is a Sphinx, whenever the Sphinx is about to spawn, it'll pop up with that question in the chat. So you just go to answer the question. Before you do that, you hit the fire freeze staff, and as you can see, it's about to close, and I would click the question now. Right as the fire freeze staff closes, the Sphinx gets instantly frozen. Hit him with a shuriken, tag him once, make sure I've sent the coords in the chat, and then I back off, swap to my sorrow set, and let everybody else kill it. And the reason I have this Hellfire Rod in my inventory is because if I am magic find swapping, I want to be able to swap to my G-Drag quickly. So when I cast my fishing rod, it equips my G-Drag with an auto pet rule that I have in here. When I throw a fishing hook, it'll equip the G-Drag with the Minos relic, so I get that extra magic find. So that just helps me get that extra magic find in if I am sorrow swapping and not killing. And then finally, we of course have the Estrella just for some extra healing. I've always used Estrella over Hyperion just for more survivability and that sort of thing. Just having that extra defense in dungeons and in Kudra, I just like it better. And I mean, I don't really use it as a weapon that often, so it's really just a healing item for the most part. I have started using it in dungeons recently, but I still just like Estrella. It's just nice. I like it. So this is just my healing that I'll use here. I also have had a gyro spray, or what's it called? Gyrokinetic wand. Yeah, there we go. I've had this guy in my inventory every now and then. It does also help if you think the fire free staff's going to take too long. You can just use this real quickly. It's very important to have ultimate wise 5 on this, because otherwise it will cost you 600 or 1200 mana to be able to actually use, but it only costs 600 if you have ult wise, so that helps quite a bit to actually be able to use it. But it just drags in the mobs closer and makes it a bit easier to hit the shuriken shot on those as well. if you don't have time for the Fire Free Staff. There are a few other things I forgot to go over. There are 2 more shards that I didn't mention earlier. The Minotaur has a shard that you can get. It grants extra magic find against mythological mobs, so that's a very good shard to get. The Sphinx also has a shard. This one gives tracking on Griffin burrows, so that's also another very important shard to get, getting some extra tracking from that. And there's also a King Minos shard. This is the most expensive, of course. It gives increased coins from Griffin burrows, so very helpful if you're leveling up a Crown of Avarice, or if not, just gives you some extra money. So good attribute to get. There are also Carnival shop perks now. Whenever Foxy's Carnival comes around, there will be perks there to help you get more tracking and deal more damage against mythological mobs. Unfortunately, she's not been elected yet as of me saying this, so in the future, when she does get here, make sure to get those perks from that shop because it is very, very helpful. Also, it gives SkyBlock XP, so why not? But I believe that is everything. If you have any questions, feel free to leave a comment. I'll do my best to answer. Hopefully this guide helped you guys out. If it did, please consider subscribing. It does help out a ton. I'm trying to get to 30,000 subs before the end of the year, and I do make guide content on new updates, and I'm trying to go back and make guide content on some older updates and things. So if you want to see more guide content, make sure to drop a like on this one. Thank you so much for watching to the end, and I'll catch you in the next one. Have an amazing rest of your day, and God bless.